Welcome to the Win Again Academy's Clubroom event series. Super excited to have two fantastic people. I've got Dr. Madeline Barlow. She is a doctor, but she does not necessarily check blood pressure, I think. And then we've also, but she'll tell us more about that. And Nikki Gangemi, who is also really a transformational coach, I'm going to call it that. But she can really look inside your head, figure out what's wrong with it, and cure it. But it's not the usual stuff. It's great other things, including the CALM method, and we'll talk about that more in a few minutes. But I'm going to bring my two co-presenters in. Why don't you join us, Madeline and Nikki, please? There's Madeline and Nikki. So just to let you all know, we're all under hurricane watch. So if you see some random items come flying by, like a cow or palm trees, I don't know, something like that. Welcome to the show, everybody. Listen, that very first question I'm going to ask both of you to just chime in on it, because it's something that's very important to everybody. I think many of us have talked about the challenges of what this whole coronavirus has caused, not just physically, but also mentally, and the whole concept that we're all by nature social human beings, and so now we've been thrust into this situation where we don't have that ability to socialize except in online scenarios like this. Give me, maybe each of you can give me just right off the bat, one thing that you're recommending to people to do to really help get past some of that sort of isolation. Madeline?
Sure. Yeah, so as you just mentioned, connection is something that we all seek in this life, and it has been challenged right now. However, it's still something I recommend to people. Just finding the different ways to go about connecting, getting creative in the way that you do that. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are having what's called Zoom fatigue. That's the new word out there. Jumping onto Zoom has been a bit exhausting because it's something new and it was thrust into our faces. However, maybe it's you just switch the platform. So here we are. We're on this cool new platform, which is very exciting to me. I love doing this. And so finding these new platforms, I know I've seen a lot of people go about, figuring out these online games that they can play with one another. Maybe it's getting together as a family on a Friday night. Everyone has their own pizza at their house, and but you're still interacting with one another. Whatever that looks like for you, your friends, your support group, find a way to connect and bring that authentic self to the conversation. Just be there in the moment. Maybe you're in your pajamas. I don't know. Make it fun. Make a costume party, whatever. But connecting is so important right now.
That's great. And Nikki?
It is, and I love everything that Dr. Madeline said. In the beginning too, we only had that, whether it was FaceTime or house party or Zoom, to connect with our family and friends, and that was a great way to feel that you were still connected, especially for people who are single or live alone. And like myself, where you are really isolated, no pets, no people, and how do you deal with that? And one way that I found is really not to get too far ahead of yourself, not to think, how much longer is this going to go on? When is this going to end? Also, I'm going to use the term, I think Tim Ferriss, the author of 4-Hour Workweek, says low information diet. Not that I ever watched the news, but I absolutely did not watch the news during this at all. I've heard what was most important that I needed to hear through friends, family. They were very happy to tell me what was going on. But listening to all that and getting too far ahead of yourself, just, that amygdala just gets fired up and you go into that fight, flight, or freeze. So staying in the lane that you're in, one day at a time, and what can you do with where you're at? Surround yourself with people, and feeling good, your top priority.
But it's interesting. You mentioned low information diet, which is really insightful, because quite frankly now I think more than ever we're spending more time in front of our screens, more time, whether it's phones, TVs, screens, and it's almost like an overdose of information, whether it's whether it's entertainment, but more likely everyone's so focused on what's going on in the news, the country, politics, race, all this different stuff. And I have to respect what Tim Ferriss is saying, because all I picture is this guy sitting on a beach somewhere drinking his Corona and chillaxing and being like, let the world go on. I'm chilling. And I, every once in a while I try that. And I'll tell you a quick funny story. People say, Mark, it's really important to meditate. And I say, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to quiet my mind, And, I once was in a steam room and I was like, okay, I'm going to try it now. And I'm sitting in the steam room and it's, they say, try to hear the steam droplet, the droplets fall, try to focus on something else. So of course I listened to that for about 13 seconds and I was like, wait a minute. So I've got all these other things I got to do. So it didn't work on me. I need something else. Maybe we'll talk about the tapping thing in one point and calm and some other things. But so I definitely need both of your help. So let's talk a little bit about how to, give me one thing I can do, in your opinion, to not only sort of cure me of that sort of information overdose, but more importantly, how can I sort of chill a little bit? What are some of the things you recommend? Madeline, we could start with you again.
Sure. Well, one thing that goes specifically with what you just said, Mark, is actually reframing the way you think about meditation. Because in society, I think we get this perception that meditation is fully quieting the mind. My mind is not quiet. It's not, because we can't really control the thoughts that come up for us necessarily, but what we can control is the way we relate to them and how we respond even to our thoughts. And it's all a process, just like anything if we're speaking to athletes or other professionals, and anything we learn that's new is a process. So going at these things with a beginner's mind has been really huge for me, really breaking it down, starting small. So even if let's go back into the idea of rest. So that's can we rest? Can we chill, like you said, right? Can we do that? Don't expect yourself to be able to chill for 5 hours in a row. Some people just can't do it.
Yeah.
But can you chill for 5 minutes? Right? I always try to just break it down in small ways. Give yourself 5 minutes a day to just sit, just be there, and see what that feels like, versus saying, yeah, I have the whole day free, let me just try and chill all day. That might be actually a bit overwhelming. So that's my recommendation in terms of something like that, and rest, which could be new for a lot of people, especially athletes who are not very used to resting.
Right.
See what 5 minutes feels like. Start there.
That's great. How about you, Nikki?
I love that, and I agree with you, Dr. Madeline. Looking at meditation in a different way, because it could be really hard, especially if you are going to try to not have thoughts. You're going to find that that's not going to happen. You're going to have thoughts, so it's more taking on the role of observer. How can I just observe, and be curious? I love to approach yourself with curiosity and compassion rather than judgment, right? So I know for myself, when I first started meditating, it was hard to just be quiet, and you don't have to just sit there cross-legged with your fingertips together. I like to take my daily activities that I do, like brewing a cup of coffee, as a meditative experience, or taking a shower, making the bed, making dinner, chopping up veggies for your salad. Whatever you're doing, you can make that a moving meditation, where you're really just using your senses. So many of us are blessed that we can see, hear, taste, touch, and smell, but we're absent because we're just on autopilot going about our day, and we're doing something and we're physically there, but we're out to lunch. Like, we're really not present, even with our family. How many times has your spouse been talking to you and you were nodding your head and touching maybe every 50th word that they said because you were just somewhere else? So you could really use those as meditations. To just, even if I could pick up this glass of water right now and I could sense the temperature. It's nice and cold and it feels good right now on this hot summer day. And it's a practice like anything else. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And you start to feel more calm over time.
That's good. You know, it's funny because someone else had said that it's always a good thing to start your day by making your bed. Just like get up and then make the bed right away, because it's almost like an exercise that gets you sort of in a certain mindset that you're going to have an organized day and a good day. And it's almost like something you can cross off your list. I don't know if it was one of you two or somebody I was speaking to that they said they list a lot of things on a to-do list to get done, but they include things like take a shower. And I'm thinking, really, that's on a list? Like, should, you know, eat food? But it's, I guess, the whole concept of being able to check things off that really helps. Now, back to the mindset aspect. So again, let's say I've been sort of cooped up for a while and I'm trying to do my best to outreach to people. But I think on the flip side, um, what can also help somebody feel better is to do an outreach themselves. So in other words, they may say, you know, oh, I'm really worried that Nikki might be feeling lonely, even though I'm not acknowledging that maybe I'm feeling lonely. And then so I'll be like, maybe I'll reach out to her. So I think that's something that people can do also, is just to sort of pick a person, one person a day to almost check in with, because then that sort of, what do you think, ladies? Am I qualified to teach this stuff?
Yeah, no,
Again,
I like that. Thinking, yeah, this is a great time to catch up with people. This whole time I've spoken to people that I haven't spoken to in years, and it was just really nice to reconnect and talk. And one thing that I like doing is, because we're always so busy and on the go, if you can just become more curious about somebody else and you learn more about their story and their background, and maybe you could have a friend for the past 10 years and there's still something that you don't know about them. And what a great time right now to learn that. And it also gets you out of maybe some stress because you're taking your attention off yourself and you're just genuinely curious about another person. And you just are asking and you're listening. And that gets you out of your head and into your heart.
That was so beautiful. Out of your
yeah.
head and into your heart. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And like that support, right? That bringing that support and that empathy and that caring and that love to other people. Absolutely. What a beautiful experience. And like you said, Nikki, I've spoken with so many people over this time that I don't think I would have if this wasn't happening in the world. So that's been a really beautiful experience for me personally, and I know it's worth sharing with others.
Well, I think what we're all finding is that there are a bunch of silver linings that have come out of this whole thing. That I think going in, we were thinking, geez, this is just such a calamitous event in our lifetimes. There's so much, so many tragedies and death and this and that. But at the same time, there's, as you said, it's a lot of new connections and new relationships that have been made that may not have been made otherwise. So I mean, I think the big thing to try to come out of this is to try to really put our best positive spin on all this stuff and really try to continue to look for those cup half full moments. Now, in terms of, one of the things I wanted to touch on was the concept of how to be prepared for a big transition in life. So it might be, for example, the transition from for an athlete from sport to what's next. It may be somebody who's switching careers completely from being a lawyer to a whatever, or it might be somebody who's just going through other transitions in their life, whether it's a transition from being single to married or married to single, or other things. What are some of the things that we can do to prepare ourselves and our minds for that sort of thing?
Yeah. There's a couple things that come up for me when I think about this. Now, the work I do is specifically for current athletes and former athletes, so that spectrum. So I'll speak directly to that. And in that transition, it's important to consider what may come up. So like you're saying, if we're preparing, whereas some people don't prepare, and that's just how it happens sometimes too, and that's okay. But if we're preparing, really start branching out and recognizing what you value outside of sport, what you like, what makes you feel good, what lights you up is the way I talk about it, outside of sport. Because more often than not, it's possible that many athletes get consumed by being an athlete. So that leaves little space for other things in your life. So the one thing that I speak with my current athletes about often is, take a few minutes a day and really just try to notice what you like. What do you like to do? I had one athlete one time say, well, I like to go around the city and take pictures, but just on my iPhone. It's no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wait. You really like it. It makes you feel good. It's fun. It's totally a big deal. How cool is that? But the reason why I think that happens for many athletes is because, again, you hype up your sport. It's the big stuff, the big wins. And so something like taking pictures on your iPhone seems small in comparison. So I invite people to take those 5 to 10 minutes a day to just really explore what lights you up, what makes you feel good. Nothing is too small.
That's great.
Yeah.
Nikki?
Yeah, nothing is too small. Celebrate all the wins. And we're really not conditioned for that, right? We're conditioned, like, it starts with kindergarten graduation, and then you have your 8th grade dance, and graduation from high school, getting your driver's license. We are conditioned to celebrate when we reach a milestone. But what about all the other little wins that we have along the way? And when you stop and celebrate those, that's where you can really start to build up some positive momentum that can just carry you further. So I always say, when I work with clients, we start to call off this, at least one thing you had today, to get into that energy. Something I noticed you said, Dr. Madeline, was talked about preparing. And I bring my acting background into my coaching today, preparing for the role. When I had to play a character, there were sometimes I couldn't relate to the character I was playing because I never actually experienced that situation. So I had to come up with a substitute. If I had to be uncomfortable or awkward in a scene, what can I use to get me to that feeling place? So when I delivered the line, it was completely believable to the audience. And when you're making a transition, like if you are an athlete and you're looking to change careers, I was a teacher for 15 years. And I saw myself as that and believed that money comes from working hard and you get a paycheck and you need an employer. That kind of thinking did not match the entrepreneurial mindset. So I had to change that first and really try it on like a new pair of clothing and get comfortable in it and embody that first before I was able to feel confident. And then the action followed that. So it's that changing from the inside out first, if that makes sense.
Change from the inside out. I love it. So it's interesting because, Madeline, you were just saying a minute ago the hot concept of when athletes are playing, they tend to really want to focus 100% on their sport, but then they've got that outside interest. And when you speak to an athlete, especially someone who's playing a sport and they think that they're going to be playing for a long time, to tell them that they should be ready for their next plan, their plan B. And even it could be an entrepreneur or it can be anybody else who is so focused on plan A, they don't want to look at plan B. What you can do instead is say, forget about a plan B. Instead, just develop that secondary interest. Develop whether it's, Nikki, if it's maybe wanting to practice some acting, or as you said, Madeline, photography, or if you want to just learn some, take a couple courses in finance or, real estate stuff or whatever it might be, to something that, as you said, really captures your interest and you're excited to do it. Because one thing I talk about to athletes all the time is that they don't need to sort of settle for something when they leave their sport. They don't need to be sort of stuck being the assistant, football coach at so-and-so middle school. What they can do instead is they can absolutely use that athletic mindset and skill set to be doing something much better, much greater for themselves. But so with that said, in terms of the there's some people that really struggle with that transition, and it's a mindset thing. But I think we can also talk about confidence too. Like, how do we restore someone's confidence?
Yeah, Nikki, do you want to go ahead? You go
That's
first.
a great question.
There you go.
And I'm just putting down some words that you said that stood out to me, and settle was one of them. Settle was something that, is a trigger, was definitely a big trigger for me because that was something that I did. I pursued my dream of acting, 23 years old, moved out to California, gave up on myself after 1 year when I didn't believe I could do it, came home and settled into being a teacher. And there was shame around saying that because people say that's such a rewarding career. So you almost feel like you're wrong to say, but it doesn't light me up, right? Um, so again, it's like, well, what's the focus? So when I left teaching to have my business, I had to change that whole story. And instead of thinking that I settled, because as long as that was my story, I settled as a teacher. I took that energy with me into my new chapter, right? So I had to think to myself, well, what was the lesson? What skills did I develop as a teacher that can help me right now? And that's something that athletes can do too, like you were saying, Martha, with skills. So what are the lessons that I learned? What are the strengths that I now have that can make me stronger? What are some better feeling thoughts that I can think to myself to help propel me forward? And then what's the new story that I want to start telling? So when I tell it, it comes from a place of empowerment. And that confidence that you want to restore, it's already inside of you. And we were born confident. I believe that. And we see that with babies when they're first learning how to walk and they try and they fall and they get back up and they wobble and it's already there. Somehow our light dims as we go through life and we get disappointed, right? And we just assign meanings to everything. But when we can kind of tune back in and connect to that inner confidence that's there, you will start to feel it, and it starts to shine a little bit, look a little stronger.
You know, I just want to jump in real quick on that because I think, and you know, it's funny because I think we, by nature, we tend to see other people maybe fail at something, and we may say, "Oh yeah, I'm probably going to fail at this" as we get older. And then if we look at people that have succeeded, we say, "Oh, I can't get to that because it's being glorified on TV." You know, we'll see Tony Robbins or something, and we'll be like, or Gary Vee or somebody, and we'll be like, "Wow, I can't be Tony Robbins. Look at him. He's got all these crazy people in a room doing all this stuff and everything. I can't do that." And then actually, as you get even older, you start finding out when you meet these people, you're like, wait a minute, I actually know more than this person. Like I'm actually like better at this than this person. So I think it's all one of those things where confidence kind of ebbs and flows throughout your life, but it's something where once you latch on to that belief that and that understanding that you bring so much strength and capability to the table with your expertise that that's what you want to do is get to that point where you've got that confidence all the time for everything you do. Sorry to interrupt, but I just
No,
That's
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Madeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that last piece, the last piece you said in terms of being consistent, like our confidence can be consistent, is what I truly believe, rather than the societal belief that it will ebb and flow. Actually, I do feel that when we develop our innate confidence, like you were referring to, Nikki, how you watch a child that's learning to walk, or genuinely a child that's doing something that as an adult we would never do. It's like, oh, that's so embarrassing. But a child is just like, I love this. This is amazing. Like they could be eating dirt, but they're eating the heck out of that dirt. I don't know. You know, if we can develop that or uncover it, let's go with that. As an adult, we can learn to uncover that innate confidence, and then it can be consistent across situations. We always have that within us. Again, even in the face of something like failure, especially in the face of something like failure, because when we have confidence, we have belief in ourselves, and we fail, it's now about, well, how do I choose to respond to that failure? Do I let the failure take me down, or do I move through it? And I think often, now it doesn't happen with everyone, but as an athlete, you fail a lot. Ooh, I failed a lot as an athlete. And it was hard to deal with as when I was older versus when I was younger. I can remember that because failure just became this thing of like, it was, I don't even have a word for it. It was like, oh gosh, that's horrible. But really, if I didn't fail, I wouldn't know what I needed to adjust. And that can be translated to life outside of sport in anything we go into. How do I respond to failure? Do I look at it as an opportunity for growth, Or is it this negative obstacle that remains in my way and I just can't climb it? So that's going back to the innate confidence. It can be consistent. And I also like to look at confidence as a choice.
Yes.
Like confidence can full on be a choice, but it's a choice you have to make each day for yourself.
Now, Madeline, I know you were a swimmer at one point, and what's interesting with swimming is that, typically you have, whether it's 6, 10, 12 racers in a pool, but people are competing for first, second, third, and I think most people really want to win the race. But what happens is, as you said, we lose a lot. There's 11 people that have, quote, lost the race. It's not, there's one winner and 11 losers kind of a thing, putting aside the whole trophy mentality and so forth. But it's the same thing with a baseball game. There's one winner and one loser. It's 50%. There's no, 2/3 of the people get the win and third lose or whatever it is. So, so with that, and Nikki, this can go to you too, but when we have that failure, when we have that loss, when we do that, how do we, what's the best way to almost compartmentalize that and then say, okay, put it aside and start a new day, start a new next step?
Yeah, the thing I do with my current athletes that I'm working with, and I always recommend this to coaches as well. So because I meet with our coaches as much as I meet with our athletes, is especially when it comes to that bus ride home, right, or the car ride home. That's always talked about, and how what we talk about in that space is really influential. It can be really positive and a space for growth, or it can be really negative and a place where we get caught up in that, oh yeah, we didn't win, we lost, we suck, right? Like that's the classic thing. So finding a way to have each individual athlete and as a team identify, well, what did we do well today? Because it's objective, right? Those types of things you can really see. What 3 things did we do really well today? Because even if you lost, there's going to be something, right? Because so swimming is an interesting example, because you can look at the time and say, well, yeah, but my time sucked. I didn't do well. But if you look hard enough within your race, I bet you can find one thing at least that you did well. You didn't take a breath off the first stroke off the wall, right? That's awesome, because you could have. That's a huge one for swimming. So you got to look sometimes. It takes a little bit of a dive, to use, no pun intended, no swimming pun intended, but a little bit of a deep dive under the surface. But try to come away with at least 3 things you did well, 2 lessons learned. I think I give people 1 thing, and now I can't think of what I do, but let's just go with those things. 3 things you did well and your strengths from that day, and at least 2 lessons you learned that you can take forward into your next practice, into your next race or competition.
That's great. So let me pivot that into, well, Nikki, do you want to follow up on that, or I'm going to ask you a separate question? Or you want to?
Yeah, I was just going to say I agree 100%. And then one thing you could even also ask yourself is, where's there room for growth? Just like, what's one thing I could do maybe a little bit better so I could express myself just a little bit. And I apply that to myself. I did it with the kids in the classroom. It's just a good way to, again, it's reframing everything. Where do you put your focus? Where did I not perform as well, or what did I do that was better? It's just a different perspective.
That's great. So now I want to shift gears into one thing that I know, Nikki, this is one of your big things, and just a real quick reminder to everybody, if you want to learn more about either Nikki or Dr. Madeline Barlow, there's on each side of the event space, you'll see logos that you can click on, and opens up windows and directs you to either schedule a call with the doctor, or you can schedule some time with Nikki also. And I mean, they're fantastic offline as well, and you can talk to them some more in a couple minutes. But Nikki, talk a little bit about the, what you call the calm, the 4 components of calm, CALM. me a little about that.
Yeah, so I call it the calm method, but you can really use it for any time you need to shift gears or change your perspective. Anytime that you notice that you're not feeling good, and I said this earlier, make how you feel your top priority. You're really only as good as how you feel. So that you've got to, like, it's cliche, but fill up your cup first so you have something to give. So the calm method is 4 steps to go from any like negative emotion to a more positive one. And the first step is see, and that is become conscious of how you're feeling. So, what is the emotion that you're feeling? During this whole pandemic, a lot of people were feeling stressed, in fear, worry, right? So, it's just kind of becoming conscious and again being curious, like, I'm noticing that I'm a little stressed out right now. And taking a few deep breaths, it's okay. It's just an emotion, which is just energy in motion. It needs to move, right? The A in calm is to become aware of your thoughts. Whenever you're experiencing an emotion, there was thoughts that preceded that emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So when you become aware of what your thoughts are, put them down on paper so they get out of your head. We have on average 70,000 thoughts a day. It'll get lost in the noise and the mental chatter. So put it on paper and then ask yourself, put your thoughts on trial. Is this thought true? Is it a fact or is it a belief? Usually it's a belief. So then we get to then move into the L, which is the third step, and that's lean into what else is possible. So if this thought is not true, then what's another option? We all have options, right? And then putting those thoughts on paper. What else could be true? And the final step 4 is the M, which is make a new decision. So redecide. What is it that you want to think so that you can feel better? That's just a really quick overview. I know it makes more sense when you make it tangible with a specific example.
That's really great. Now, why don't we do this then? Because you guys have been fantastic, and I don't want to go too much longer. But why don't we now go back into the sort of chatting with each other kind of mode? This has been fantastic, though. You guys really know your stuff. But most importantly, I think that just maybe sharing half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour with each of you at some point, I think people can really sort of, that's a verbal version of what they can, or a visual version of what you can do, right? And so just thanks so much for both of you being on here. This is another great example of just the fantastic guests we have here in the Win Again Academy. For all of you who are interested in joining and becoming members, please go to the website, markmoyer.com, to join the Academy, and we can take it back from there. Thanks so much, guys, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
Thank you.